Today I'm ranking all of the Dragon Ball Z Kakarot DLC. It's been 6 years since the release of Kakarot, and a total of 3 seasons of DLC came out, but not all DLC is built the same. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I'm getting really excited about the Dragon Ball Games Battle Hour next week. The thing is, I don't see Kakarot anywhere on that announcement list. Maybe they're done with DLC, but even if they're not, if you just want to buy all the DLC right now, it's gonna cost you at least $100. It's kind of expensive. But as someone who loves Kakarot and has not only played all the DLC, but also reviewed all of them, it's kind of my thing. Subscribe for more of that. That means I can let you know exactly what to expect from each pack, and things did not start well.
Oh, pudding, you say? Sounds delicious. Where can I find it?
DLC 1 was Beerus, which was basically just a couple of boss fights. You could fight against Beerus, you could fight against Whis, this would give you some water, which levels you up, but there's no storytelling, the Beerus planet is super empty, it was honestly just a big cash grab. The second DLC was the Resurrection F, which was a lot better. They gave us a couple of cutscenes to tell the story. Now, granted, there's not a lot of story in Resurrection F, so it's like only 3 cutscenes, but they're really good ones. And they also set the stage for a really cool Frieza fight. Also, this DLC introduced a new battle mechanic called Horde Battles, where you go up against hundreds of enemies at a time. Now, this isn't the most fun battle system, but it's cool when used in moderation to break the pace of combat. In other words, it's cool if you do it once in a while, not cool if you do it all the time. It's also the DLC that introduced post-game content. That means after you're done with the boss fights that the game gives you, you can actually go into kind of a training mode that you can just repeat, use that for not only leveling up, but also tackle the same bosses at a higher level. This would be done for every DLC from this point onwards. Now, you cannot buy DLC 1 and 2 separately anymore, which you might think, wow, that's a scam. But actually, DLC 1 came out costing $9.99, and DLC 2 came out also costing $9.99. But now you can buy both of them for $9.99. Pretty cool deal. So we're gonna rank them at C tier. I would rank Beerus way lower, but Frieza brings that up a bit, and I see this kind of as buying the Frieza DLC and getting the Beerus stuff for free. It's also pretty cool that you can bring the new transformations to the base game for both Goku and Vegeta, but I hate how Beerus completely breaks the game's progression with the water stuff, man. You just become way too over-leveled, way too early in the main story if you ever decide to visit Beerus. It's optional, you don't have to do it, but at that point, why are you getting the DLC, you know?
Hold your fire! This man isn't black!
Things got a lot better when Trunks came around. I think this is the DLC where they actually figured out how to do expansions for Kakarot. This was so good. The Future Trunks arc is not only a full retelling of that saga, it also expands the lore and knowledge you have from that time period and really puts you in the shoes of Trunks. Emotionally, the story is super well retold. You get to follow Trunks' growth and explore what a world dominated by the androids actually looks like. Did you know Master Roshi is still alive, but has to live on a submarine? I didn't until I played this DLC. They made a new mechanic where you can get spotted by these drones, and the drones will alert the androids, and at this point, the androids are pretty much invincible. So what you gotta do is fulfill some combat objectives so you can escape these battles. And the main boss fights are not only really fun to do, but also cinematically, they did some incredible work. Like, they went all out. They are still some of the best looking cinematics in Kakarot. Heat Dome attack on Cell, mwah. And then it goes beyond the android saga. The Supreme Kai comes down to Earth to warn Trunks about Babidi D and Majin Buu, and the story follows what happens in the Dragon Ball Super manga, ending it all in a big boss fight against Dabura, and it's still incredibly well told. Plus, after you're done with the story, you can take this Trunks back to the main game and even tackle some post-game challenges with him. To me, this is the perfect DLC, and to this day, remains unbeaten. Not everyone is going to agree with this take, and I do agree that there's another DLC that got very close, but this is the complete package in a way that no other DLC ever was. It also costs $19.99, but I think it's very much worth it.
It all comes down to this. My fate, Planet Vegeta's Kakarot.
That doesn't mean the rest of the DLC is bad though. I told you they found the formula with Trunks, so the next DLC, Bardock's story, kind of followed that formula. It's also an incredibly retelling of that arc with a full cinematic treatment and some great boss fights. I mean, First Form Frieza is a top 3 boss fight still to this day. Plus, they give you a couple of new areas to explore. You got Planet Vegeta, which is pretty cool. You look at the sky and you see the spaceships coming and going. You got Wild Saiyaman hanging out outside the base. I never thought of the concept of Wild Saiyaman, but I guess it kind of makes sense. You got some buildings you can even walk into. I love Planet Vegeta. They also give you Planet Kanasa, but it's pretty empty overall. It's mostly just a zone for combat, but it's there, I guess. However, I have two big problems with this DLC, and that's why to me, this one is nowhere near Trunks. One, you don't bring anything back to the main game. It was the first DLC where you simply play with Bardock and then you're done. The DLC exists completely separate. And don't get me wrong, playing as Bardock is pretty cool, and I get why you don't bring anything back because Bardock isn't playable in the main game, but hey, it's a video game. Let me play with Bardock in the main game. And problem number two, Horde battles. The Horde battles introduced in the Frieza DLC, they reuse them here a lot. It's fine to reuse them once in a while, but they do it way too much. Most of the DLC is actually Horde battles, and if you remember what I said during the Frieza DLC, it's cool if you do it once in a while, not cool if you do it all the time. Well, they do it all the time, and it's pretty boring in my opinion. Not a bad DLC, but it's a couple of tiers below Trunks in my opinion. It's also $19.99 by the way. I didn't feel bad spending that amount of money on Trunks at all, but with Bardock, it did feel a bit too much.
I really think this is gonna hurt.
A lot.
Then we got a couple of cheaper DLC. Both the 23rd World Martial Arts Tournament and Goku's Next Journey cost $13.99. Big price drop. And I think it's mostly because these stories are shorter. But I don't think the DLCs overall are smaller than any other DLCs, not if you include the side quests and the post-game content, so that's a pretty good deal for us. The 23rd World Martial Arts Tournament arc DLC is kind of a boss rush. I mean, they do fully retell the story in that arc, but most of it happens in the tournament. That means there isn't a lot of space to just go out there into the world and do your usual Kakarot exploration. They save most of their side quests for when you're done with the actual story. They actually just want you to sit at the World Tournament Arena and just do fight after fight after fight. And I appreciate that. It's a nice change of pace. It's different from what we're used to with Kakarot. And I honestly wouldn't mind more DLC like this because the boss fights are so much fun. But it's also probably why this one is the shortest DLC of them all. At least if all you're doing is the main story. You could easily look at this single fact and rank this DLC very low, but the reality is this is one of the best DLC packs they have ever done. I'm sure you've noticed it at this point, but all combat encounters during this DLC are happening on the ground. They had to build a whole new combat system for ground combat. This did not exist before this DLC, but since they're telling a part of the story where flying wasn't as common and some characters couldn't even fly back then, they had to build this whole thing. Grounded combat changes things significantly. Because now you got abilities that are launchers and you can jump up in the air and do combos that knock opponents back down to the ground. It still feels like Kakarot, but it almost feels like a different game at the same time. It's the type of thing that you often see in full sequels, not in just a single DLC piece. And they didn't stop there, because they didn't just develop this grounded system for 1v1 battles, they also did it for Horde battles as well. And Horde battles are a big part of the post-game content. They didn't use that to pad out to the main story at all this time, which I do appreciate. So to me, the short length of the main story isn't even a negative factor. Not only is every single second of this DLC a cool boss fight, there's also plenty of content to play afterwards as well. My one big problem with this DLC is that, like the Bardock DLC, you don't bring anything back to the main game. Now, Bardock had an excuse, because Bardock is not in the main game. But in this DLC, they straight up have Tien playable, and you can still only use him as an assist during the main game. Also, none of your abilities as Goku carry over. So many people wanted to use the feet Kamehameha. It's not there. Not even the new Nimbus. You can only fly this slow in the main game if you're using the Nimbus, but in the DLC, you can boost and fly fast with it as if you were flying normally. I don't see a reason why that wouldn't carry over. That's not gonna stop me from putting this DLC at the S tier, but it will stop me from putting it over the Trunks DLC. To me, it came very close, but Trunks is still the king.
I've decided that from now on, I'm going to live in your village and teach you the art of fighting.
And then they ended Season 2 by covering the final episodes of Dragon Ball Z. Goku's next journey is mostly about Goku being excited for the World Martial Arts Tournament because he gets to fight against Oob. We get a few cool surprises as we get to practice against Goten, and Pan is actually playable. Her moveset is super adorable. Then you fight against Oob and the canon story ends. But this is the DLC where CC2 got to flex the most original stories. Since it's a very short arc, they filled it with original side quests after Goku takes off to train with Oob. And I gotta say, they're probably the best side quests they've ever done, at least narratively. They are still side quests, which means gameplay-wise, a lot of them are gonna be about fetching stuff, or they're just simple battles. And they also lack that big cinematic treatment, so it's not as good as having a big main story for sure. But best side quests, that's still a good quality, right? And the main story itself also has a few cool boss fights. And after Oob is done, you have a new quest where you can fight against Vegeta. This battle against Vegeta is the #1 best boss fight ever done in Kakarot. It is epic, it's cinematic, it's got 3 different phases. They cooked so hard with this one. Plus, you get to bring some of your new Goku skills back to the base game. You get a new Kamehameha, a new combo, and a new ability called Dragon Flash, which is a really cool teleport. Awesome DLC, which I am gonna rank at the A tier. I think it's very good, but slightly below the others. Mostly because a lot of its value is in side quests, but also it brings no new mechanics to Kakarot. It makes great use of the grounded battles introduced in the last DLC and mixes those with traditional Kakarot combat, but as far as building new stuff, it really has nothing. So still very good, just not an S tier.
I want you to turn the ones who defeated Majin Buu and all their friends back into children! Toot sweet.
And then Season 3 came and it was all about Daima. The Daima DLC was split into Part 1 and Part 2, and I think the DLC definitely works better as a full package, but it is still sold separately and each part costs $19.99. That's as much as Trunks or Bardock. To me, that means that each DLC needs to work well on their own, and unfortunately I don't think Part 1 works well on its own at all. Not for a lack of trying, trust me, CC2 did try to make this work. They created a lot of systems, especially in exploration, to make this DLC good. They put important stuff in treasure chests, which is better than just orbs laying on the ground. They made a new collectible called Demon Rumors, which had fully voiced cutscenes each time you found one. And they made the biggest area they ever did for a DLC. The 3rd Demon World is gigantic, but you can only do so much when you are adapting the start of Daima. Regardless of how you feel about Daima as a series, it does start pretty slow, especially if you're adapting it to a video game. It's missing those big cinematic moments or boss fights. In fact, the whole DLC only has 2 boss fights, Glorio and Tamagami 3. And because there isn't a lot going on at the start of Daima, this huge world feels pretty empty and full of copy-paste activities. It relies way too much on horde battles, which, if you remember what I said earlier, it's cool if you do it once in a while, not cool if you do it all the time. And yes, that does go for grounded horde battles too. They did add a new debuff mechanic, which you could mostly ignore, to be honest. It didn't really start shining until Part 2. So overall, this felt like a pretty flawed DLC, even though CC2 tried really hard to make it work. It's one of the worst in my opinion and feels kind of overpriced.
I swear I'm never taking another bath with you for as long as I live!
But I do blame Daima for most of its faults, because when they made Part 2, they didn't really add any new mechanics. They added some new enemy types and that was it. But all of the systems they added in Part 1 now made for a much better DLC in Part 2. The debuffs suddenly paired with the new enemy types made for a challenging combat system. The pace of Daima also picks up a lot in the 2nd and 1st Demon Worlds, so now you have 4 brand new boss fights plus a recycled fight against Tamagami 3 to kick off the DLC. And you don't just play with Goku, but also as Vegeta, and they get all the transformations from the show as well, with a ton of new moves for you to unlock and try out in battle. And you still have a big area in the 1st Demon World to explore and do some side activities in. It's much closer to the Kakarot DLC experience that we've come to expect at this point. They still rely a bit too much on horde battles when it comes to exploration, and you know those are not my favorite at this point, but the main story does feel much more balanced. Now, there's a big thing missing, which are the adults. Adult Goku and Vegeta actually have a full new moveset that you can play with, but you can only use it in the boss fight against Goma. You cannot take these characters out of that boss fight to explore, or even use any of their stuff back in the base game. In fact, the whole Daima DLC gives you nothing to bring back to the main game, and that's always a bummer. In this case, I would probably mostly blame license holders. Since Daima apparently takes place in a different timeline, maybe they didn't want to mix the two by giving main game Goku Super Saiyan 4. Personally, I say who cares, it's a video game, but that's just me. Daima Part 2 for me ranks on the B tier, but I would say it's a more complete experience compared to Bardock. It has more boss fights, it has better exploration, and even though they both have a ton of horde battles, at least Daima saves most of those for side contents, while Bardock actually uses them for padding the main story. But that is my DLC tier list. If you liked Kakarot in the past and you want to buy DLC, I definitely recommend starting with Trunks and the World Tournament, and if you enjoy those two, go ahead and get Goku's Journey as well. The rest feels a lot more optional unless you're a really big Kakarot fan, in which case you already have everything anyway, so who cares. I hope Battle Hour does announce Season 4, because I don't feel like I'm done with Kakarot, and now that Xenoverse 3 is going to be a thing, I don't think we'll see Kakarot 2 for a very long time. Whatever comes out of it, we'll make sure to cover it here on this channel, but for now, that's going to do it. As always, thank you very much for watching. My name's Globku, and I'll see you next time. Bye! I lost it.